Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, if you're a fan of fan translations on retro games, you're going to like this piece of news here. So Emulator has you covered. They just published their December 2024 monthly game fan translations recap. Now, we've talked about some of these fan translations in previous videos, but not all of them. Emulator's list here is pretty comprehensive, and he's got everything timestamped in the video. Like everything we talk about, link will be in the description below at the bottom. One of the big ones we've talked about here was Tales of Rebirth. Now, Tales of Rebirth was released a little over 20 years ago, back in 2004 on the PS2, and then again in 2008 on the PSP. It was only ever released in Japan and never officially translated into English. Well, not until now. It is on GitHub, and this is one of the many games that were translated into English in December. And speaking about GitHub, next up we're talking about a brand new Game Boy emulator that is just released over on GitHub. It's called CodeDMG, and this one is interesting because it's written in C#. So for those who may not be aware, C# stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, and it's a little bit, or actually a lot a bit different than C and C++. It is in the same overall family though. Anyway, someone asks, why use C# and not something like C or C++? And the developer says, well, C# is one of their favorite languages, so why not make it their favorite project in their favorite language? Now, at the time of filming, CodeDMG version 1.0.0 is the first and latest release. It's 100% free, it's open source, it's not perfect just yet. I mean, it is just its first release. The compatibility list is pretty small. The developer has tested a number of different games and everything seems to work, but there are some issues with some games. CodeDMG is available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's not the best Game Boy emulator out there, but it is an interesting one, and I'm a fan of very interesting projects. I think this one's pretty cool. And speaking about stuff that's pretty cool, next up we're talking about a Sonic fan game that's getting a lot of attention. It's called Sonic Galactic, and there's a brand new video up on YouTube showcasing this game in action. Now, in fairness, there are a number of videos about this game on YouTube, but Alpha Beta Gamer, in my opinion, has one of the very good ones here, considering it's 35 minutes and 59 seconds, so pretty much 36 minutes of gameplay. And they show all 5 levels, bosses, and 3D bonus levels. The feedback about this game has been extremely positive. For example, here's John's feedback over on Blue Sky. This is obscenely well made. It's honestly so good that it could stand as an official Sega product when complete. Just oozing quality, great level design, cool new mechanics, some fresh ideas, yet still classic Sonic. Very, very cool. It's also like 40 odd minutes long as many 16-bit games. Now, although this game has been in the works for a while, it's still technically a demo, and they're calling this release a Demo 2. I'm going to leave a link to their official YouTube channel as well, so you can head over there and give them some love. So if you haven't guessed already, Sonic Galactic is not finished just yet. They are still working on it, and Demo 2 is available for Windows and Mac, or M1 Mac. So let me know your thoughts about this game in the comments below. Honestly, I think it looks super cool. I may check this one out. I haven't yet, to be fully transparent with you. And I don't think Sega is going to take this one down. Sega seems to be the polar opposite of Nintendo with this stuff. They seem to be absolutely fine with modding and fan games. Next up, we're talking about a very interesting article over on Games Radar. It's called AAA. Developers discuss the 3 little letters that have shaped an industry. It's a stupid term, it's meaningless. I do recommend checking out the article because it's very easy just to formulate opinions based on that title alone. The article itself it's a little bit wordy, but it is pretty lengthy and, well, there's a lot in it. Overall, I would say, though, that the AAA title does mean something in gaming. However, and this is the big however, what exactly does it mean? And it seems to mean different things for different people, and I think that's why the title of the article is the way it is. Because some people say it as AAA having a big team and a big budget. Some people saying it being a big game overall. And some people are saying it's a AAA experience from a game. I don't know about you, and feel free to tell me your definition in the comments below because I'm very curious to hear what everyone has to say. To me, a AAA game is big team, big budget, and big expectations. But I could be wrong about that. I mean, in contrast, I view indie games as a much smaller development team, a much smaller budget, and arguably a much smaller expectation of success overall. Again, I could be wrong about all of that. I think things start to get confusing when other terms are introduced, like AAA Plus and arguably even AA, not really, but arguably. And then the quadruple A that was just introduced, which, whatever. But either way, I am curious to hear your thoughts on the entire matter. I do think the AAA term is meaningful. I think there is meaning behind it. And even if there is a little bit of flexibility in what defines AAA, at the same time, I think there's a purpose behind it. And speaking about AAA stuff, next up we're talking about Naughty Dog. And there's a very interesting article over on Video Games Chronicle, and I think the original article was over on the LA Times. And it's from Naughty Dog's founder explaining why he sold to Sony and saying looking back it was the right call. And this does play into the whole AAA discussion that we were just talking about. So this interview was with Andrew Gavin, the co-founder of Naughty Dog, and Andrew Gavin claims that they sold to Sony due to skyrocketing budgets. Listen to this quote. In the early 80s, games cost less than $50,000 each to make. By the time we got to Jak and Daxter, the budget busted the $15 million mark. Furthermore, Video Games Chronicle points out that The Last of Us Part 2 from Naughty Dog cost $220 million to develop. So listen to this other quote. Selling to Sony wasn't just about securing a financial future for Naughty Dog. It was about giving the studio the resources to keep making the best games possible, without being crushed by the weight of skyrocketing costs and the paralyzing fear that one slip would ruin it all. So feel free to work that into your discussion and your thoughts about what constitutes AAA and what doesn't, and if AAA matters. And speaking about costs, next up we're talking about speedrunning with GDQ and also Humble Bundle. There's a very good bundle, at least in my opinion, over on humblebundle.com right now for 7 games in total for a very reasonable price. So included in this bundle is Have a Nice Death, Ori and the Blind Forest, Sonic Lost World, Shenmue 1 and 2, BPM Bullets Per Minute, New Super Lucky's Tale, as well as Condemned Criminal Origins. Now, at the time of filming and also at the time of posting, there's still time to pick up this deal, unlike the Kingdom Come Deliverance free game from Epic that I posted after Kingdom Come was no longer free. Anyways, here 6,176 of these packages have been sold. And I would say this is a pretty darn good value. On a side note here, if you haven't played Ori and the Blind Forest, I think this bundle is worth picking up just for this game. Right now on Steam, this game costs more than the entire bundle. It does go on sale from time to time. And I think Ori and the Blind Forest is a really, really good platformer. And speaking about platforms, next up we're talking about Twitter, or X, and it appears that a manga publisher is trying to expose some pirates of One Piece. According to Torrent Freak, this one has gone to court again, and they're requesting a DMCA subpoena from X about accounts Spoiler Plus and Manga Raw. Now, as for the information, the manga company Shueisha, I'm not quite sure on how to pronounce that one. Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, here it appears they're looking for a lot of stuff, including names, phone numbers, email addresses, payment details, IP addresses, and detailed access logs. I'm very curious to see what happens about this one and whether or not X complies, and also what details X has on people. We'll have to wait and see on that one. I mean, I think we've seen Reddit fight back against this stuff, Discord fight back against this stuff, but who knows about X? And speaking about lawsuits and details, next up we're talking about the Nintendo Switch 2, and another day, another Switch 2 leak. So this one just popped up online here. It's been talked about by a whole bunch of different news outlets already, and it's on Reddit Nintendo Switch 2. This post is titled New Joy-Con Photos from Chinese SNS. And if we take a look, there are photos, and probably some of the clearest photos we've seen, of the new Switch 2 Joy-Con, or the alleged new Switch 2 Joy-Con. Now, if we zoom in on one of these pictures, we can clearly see, or somewhat clearly see, a serial number on the back. So whether or not this is real or fake is yet to be determined. But if it is real, considering there's a serial number on it, Nintendo probably knows where this leak came from, and we may hear more details about that. Now, oddly enough, there are no photos of the front of this thing yet, but at the same time here, again and again and again and again and again and again, we're seeing the exact same design for the Nintendo Switch 2 leaked from a whole bunch of different sources. So I'm beginning to believe that this may be what the Switch 2 actually is. And speaking about leaks and stuff that could be big, next up we're talking about Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. And it's being reported that the source code for this game has leaked online, but it is password protected. At this point in time, it is unconfirmed as to whether or not this is the real source code or just someone trying to profit and trolling people. We'll have to wait and see on this one, but if this is real, this could be very, very big. And speaking about big, next up we're talking about Retroarch, which has arguably had a pretty strong start to 2025. I mean, we talked about Retroarch version 1.20 with CloudSync, and now they've just published a brand new blog post highlighting even more information. Now, arguably, and I'm going to try to not open a huge can of worms with this, so I'm going to limit what I say here. One of the big thorns in the side of Retroarch is their PS2 core. There is a big difference between the PS2 core within Retroarch and PCSX2. There is a bit of a rift, and a bit of a rift is a light word, between the PCSX2 team and the Retroarch team, and we're not covering that in this video. But anyways here, it seems that Retroarch has made significant progress on their PS2 emulation core. If you are interested in learning about Libretro or Retroarch's PS2 development, I do recommend checking out their article. They go over a lot of detail, and I mean a whole lot. I'd be spending like 20 minutes, maybe half hour, maybe even more going over this whole thing. There is quite a bit of information in here. If you haven't checked out the Retroarch PS2 core in a while, you may want to check it out and see how it performs for the games you like. Additionally here, Retroarch has announced they're the first program to support BlurBuster CRT beam racing simulator shader. So they say here, we are excited to introduce a new shader that significantly improves motion clarity on modern displays, without the typical drawbacks associated with black frame insertion. If you are curious about this one and you've got Retroarch version 1.20 or later, then you can absolutely check this one out. They've even got instructions on how to enable it. So at a high level here, if you've got a high refresh rate monitor, something like 120 Hz or higher, or one of those crazy 500 Hz monitors, go to Settings, Video Synchronization, and enable the Shader Subframes option. Load up your core, open up the quick menu, and you'll find the shader in the subframe BFI directory named crt.beamsimulator.slangp. But moving on, and next up we're talking about Notch. Now for most people, Notch doesn't need an introduction. For those who may not be aware of who this is, Notch is the person behind Minecraft. Anyways, Notch appears to be working on a brand new game, and he's got a post over on X that has got a lot of people talking. So here is what Notch says. Honest and legitimate request for feedback for once. The new game I'm passionately working on is currently set to be a traditional roguelike, mixed with a tile-based first-person dungeon crawler. But then I got to thinking that maybe there are people who like my work but might not share my taste in retro nostalgia, and would prefer for me to make a spiritual successor thing to Minecraft. And I mean, sure, I'd take that cash. So market research, I'd be happy to oblige either. Which one would make you happier? Now, absolutely no surprise here. I mean, there's 3 days left to vote, but I don't see this changing too much at all. 280,000 people have voted, and the popular answer right now is make Minecraft 2, boomer, with 81% of the vote. Not gonna lie, I voted for Minecraft 2 just to see what happens, and I don't really like uncursing potions because I find curses very annoying. But let me know what you think about the two options here and which one you would choose and which one you think would be most successful. Just because Minecraft 2 is the most popular answer doesn't mean Minecraft 2 will measure up against Minecraft and be successful as well. There is a lot of room for Minecraft 2 to fail, and it might be smart for Notch to work on something entirely different. But I mean, I could be wrong with that. Let me know what you think about all of that. Next up is a quick heads up and a follow-up to something we talked about yesterday, MAME4droid. Now in yesterday's video, we talked about MAME4droid 2024 on the Google Play Store. It was version 0.272, which was MAME version 0.272. Anyways, on GitHub, it was renamed to MAME4droid 2025 instead of 2024. I was wondering what was going to happen on the Google Play Store and when it was going to be updated. Well, it appears the update is here, and MAME4droid has been renamed to MAME4droid Current. So if you are planning to use this emulator and you're very curious about the name, well, there you go. It's just changed the name and got an update. So you don't have to worry about MAME4droid 2024 or 2025 anymore. It's just MAME4droid Current. And last up here, we're talking about Geekom, which has announced some brand new mini PCs. Now, this announcement came as a bit of a surprise, not because Geekom is making new mini PCs, but because of the chips inside. They have announced these PCs with an Intel Core Ultra 200H before Intel has announced the Intel Core Ultra 200H. Intel is set to release these specs on Monday, so tomorrow at the time of filming here, but if you wanted to see the specs early, you can check out the article over on videocards.com that has Geekom's announcement with the Intel 200H specs. Now, I don't know about you, but I find laptops and mini PCs super cool, and with the prices of GPUs continually on the rise to some crazy prices like the 5080 and 5090, mini PCs and laptops to me seem even more attractive. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos, get some fresh air, go on outside and touch some grass.